I'm just going to pull up these questions real quick. Okay, so I'm going to start with the most open question in the world. What is Acre Wine's story? It's always a great one to start with.
It is a great one to start with. The story of Acre Wines actually starts with the story of 1 Acre. So Dave Becker was a farmer in the Napa Valley. He was tending his family's farm on Darham's Lane in Oaknoll District. He was making wine from his single acre planting that he called 1 Acre. And about 5 years after he started that project, a friend of his took his wines and, unbeknownst to him, entered the wines into an international competition of sommeliers in Hong Kong, and he took best in class. So that to him was kind of a nod to he was doing something right. He decided to keep doing that project. A few years later, a gentleman by the name of Bob Babby, who was good friends with Dave, convinced him to do a project that was a little bit bigger than just that single acre plot, and that was when Acre was born. They took that project for about 6 years, built it into national sales, and really grew it very well and organically. About 6 years in, they were ready to retire. My wife and I were ready. We were looking for a new project. I had been working on the distribution side myself, so I had a number of years experience in the wine industry, but had never actually been on the production side myself. So I had the opportunity, we both had the opportunity to take over operations from Bob and Dave, and it's been an incredible ride ever since.
Wow. When did you take over? Sorry again.
So we took over operation of the winery in 2017, and it was an interesting time when we did because the fires were raging down in the valley. In fact, Dave's 1 Acre project didn't produce any wine that year because of the fires. But we had already brought in our crop for Acre, so it was an interesting time to be making wine, and it was a leap of faith for us. Again, we knew what we wanted to do, and we were really happy that we had the opportunity to do it with this Acre project.
Tell me this: what distinguishes Napa Valley wine? Very big question as well.
Yeah, exactly. Napa Valley is a really unique little area, I think, in California. It's a north-south valley. It's got the San Pablo Bay to the south. You get the San Francisco Bay influence, which I almost kind of consider the lungs of Northern California. Every night the fog rolls in, and every day the sun kind of sends it back out. That Pacific influence is what's really the mitigating factor to keeping those vineyards as cool as they are. Although obviously you do get enough heat and enough ripening to get, I think, some wonderful fruit. Because it's that north-south valley though with the bay influence, I think that's really what makes Napa unique. That and the fact that it's got some great soils for growing Cabernet, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc. Down in the south in Carneros, of course, some wonderful Chardonnays and Pinots.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. What does Acre Wines do to minimize the environmental impact?
That's a great question. So Acre has really been focusing on minimizing our environmental footprint as much as possible. Our grapes are mostly sourced from organic sources. Cabernet Sauvignon, Zinfandel, and Sauvignon Blanc are all organically grown and farmed. Starting in 2022, they're actually going to be organically made as well, so they will say made with organic grapes on the back of the bottles. We have taken our bottle size and shrunk it quite a bit. Still 750 milliliters, of course, but it's what we've basically done with our bottles is we've gone to a lighter weight bottle that has a lower environmental footprint. It takes about 30% off the weight of that case when we're shipping it, so that's a really big difference. We're going away from the foil capsules. Tin is actually not that environmentally friendly when it comes to how it's harvested. It's not really that recyclable. And so we're doing away with foil on all of our bottles. We feel like those two things together are really going to help us lower our environmental footprint. We're also very mindful toward practices. We're, again, really happy to be working with organic farmers who take the practices in the vineyard very seriously and also take the practices in the winery very seriously.
A lot of people seem to be moving towards even plastic bottles. I've seen with wineries and stuff like that, which is...
There is a movement, yeah. I think Jancis Robinson is trying to push people to go away from glass altogether.
Right.
I don't know that we're ready to move to plastic personally. I think, particularly when you're talking about a product that's going to be aging for a number of years, and they say that plastic doesn't influence the bottle. But
Yeah.
I have had some good wine in cans. I'm not totally opposed to that. That's a conversation that comes up from time to time. I think we're going to stick with bottles, but
Right. Tell us a little bit about your various vineyards that you have.
yes, absolutely. So we source all of our grapes from, again, organically and sustainably farmed, family-owned vineyards. The main people that we're getting our grapes from are the Hoxie family in the Napa Valley. They also own the facility where we make our wine in Oakville. They're fantastic growers, wonderful stewards of the land. They became organic farmers back in the 80s, really out of a sense of practicality. They were seeing a lot better health and vigor in their vines after going to organic, and so they converted their entire operation to organic farming back before a lot of other wineries even really had that on their radar.
On your vineyard, have you got a favorite wine, or have you got a favorite? I know you're probably going to say they're all fantastic, but if you had to choose one, have you got one?
I have an answer for this one.
Awesome.
Choosing a favorite wine is like choosing a favorite kid. The thing about the wines that we produce is that each one of them has its own personality. Each one of them has its own charm. I love each of them for different reasons. I choose each of them for different reasons on different occasions. And there are certainly wines that we go to more often. I mean, I would say we probably drink more Sauvignon Blanc than anything else, simply because we drink a lot of white wine, and that tends to be when we're starting our evening. We have a glass of white wine. It's often our Sauvignon Blanc. The Zinfandel for the reds, just because it's a very versatile grape. You will find us probably pairing it more. It can go on pizza night. It can go with pulled pork. It can go with any kind of slow cooked food. Merlot is also a pretty versatile grape. You can work with a lot of different dishes with that. Cabernet, we tend to stick with kind of the standards. If we're doing meat and potatoes, we're gonna have a cab on the table.
Awesome. So you're telling me the Sauv, is that what you're leaning towards?
I would say we drink more of the Sauv than any other wine, but I can't pick a favorite.
I got you. I'm just trying to pull, being a good interviewer. And
Sure. Oh yeah. I had a friend one time who said, "Yeah, I know we love all our kids equally, but who's your favorite?"
Right.
I have one. And, no, we don't have favorites.
If you could recommend a good starter wine for someone that's like trying to get into wines, like would you have any one in particular that you would recommend?
That's a tough one. I have to think about that for a second. I feel like our Zinfandel is a pretty approachable wine for people who are just getting into wine, particularly because it's not necessarily the typical Zinfandel that they would find on the shelf. Our Zinfandel is coming from a little bit cooler climate. It's coming from the Oakville appellation. It tends to be a little bit more toward the classic style of Zinfandel, but it still does have that kind of bright, fruit-forward component that people are looking for in a Zinfandel.
Are you a red or a white, or do you have a preference? Or you kind of answered it a little bit, or is this
Right.
the favorite child again?
We always start with the white and we end with the red.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I prefer one over the other. It's situational for me, and oftentimes if we're going out, I know that, for a lot of people, I think they view sparkling wine and champagne as a celebration wine.
Right.
When we go out, we'll always have that first glass of bubbles, and then we'll move on to a white wine with our appetizers. We'll do a red wine with our main course, most of the time, unless we're doing fish.
Right.
But and even then, usually it ends up being a red wine, like a Gamay or a Pinot Noir. That tends to be what we kind of find works for us. Everyday drinking, I do drink a lot of beer.
Have you got a personal preference in beer? Have you got a go-to beer that's on the shelf?
I've been tending away from the IPAs lately, not because I don't like that profile, but because I really like a good, clean Pilsner. So I would say, if anything, I've been going more just for straight-up Pilsners. We've got a bunch in California that are fantastic. Russian River Brewing makes a great one. Shermer Pils is out in Oakland making some great Pilsner.
Cool. What's your favorite musician? Really hitting
No
with the
contest.
favorites there?
Living or dead, my favorite musician is Jerry Garcia.
Wow, okay. I don't even know who that is. Is that crazy?
He was the lead guitarist for the Grateful Dead.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, he passed away in 1995, but I had the opportunity to see him when I was younger, and no one could play like Jerry in my opinion. Not necessarily in terms of dexterity, more in terms of the intention of every note. The notion that I'm a big fan of jazz. It's one of the reasons I love coming to New Orleans is I love going out and seeing jazz music, and jazz players have that same intention. Every note has kind of a feeling to it. It's not just about putting a bunch of notes together. It's about actually saying something with those notes, and that's why I always loved Jerry, that he had that sound.
you started talking about you love coming down here. Have you got a bar or a restaurant that you just absolutely must go to every time you come down here, or are you one of those guys that likes to try new things and explore?
Culinarily, I like to try new things and explore. If there's a restaurant that I haven't tried, especially if it's a new opening that I really want to get into, then I'll go out there and check it out. I went to a couple great restaurants this week. I mean, same thing, just really wanted to check things out. I will say, because I'm a huge music fan, I tend to kind of go to the same places when I'm going to see music. So I love going down on Frenchman Street, going to DBA, going across the street to Spotted Cat, Snug Harbor. This week I actually made it up to the Maple Leaf twice because two of my favorite musicians were playing there this week.
Wow, that sounds like a perfect trip for you this week, huh?
Great, yeah.
The wine came second, the music was first.
That's right, yeah.
That's awesome,
Go
man.
straight to the music, you know.
Perfect.
Well, the wine always comes first, but if the music's there, then I get to enjoy it. That's
right.
You know,
Wine
as
and
they say, that's lagniappe, right?
Right. When in Rome, huh?
That's right.
Right.